Mtgnerdgirl is proudly sponsored by CoolStuffInc.com. When you use promo code MNG5 at checkout, you'll receive a free exclusive MTG Nerdgirl Vampire token, as well as 5% off your entire order. Show your support for her content and get this free bonus by using the code MNG5. Only at CoolStuffInc.com. Cool stuff in stock.
Welcome back, guys. We are here for our Brothers War set review. We will be working on blue today and rating each card from 1 to 5 based on an average deck, how they will perform in an average deck for limited. Yanks is, as always, on the call with us. Welcome back, Yanks.
Hello, everybody. Time for the best color in Magic.
Boo. Unless it's tempo-y. I like tempo. Let's go ahead and jump right in with Air Marshal. 2 mana for a human soldier, 2/1. And for 3 mana, it target soldier gains flying until end of turn. Itself or another soldier, which is really cool. It doesn't fly on its own naturally, but that's a nice little leap ability. I'm into it.
Yeah, blue-white is the soldier deck. This is going to be great in that, in that archetype. A lot of times your sort of smaller creature decks have trouble getting through on the ground later on in games. This gives you the little bit of extra reach you need.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a little tough for this to be aggressive on its own. It's a pretty late game mana sink, but and it's going to possibly trade down, but it's fine. I think this is a good card. I think it's like a 2/5 in the soldier decks.
I think so. Yeah, in the soldier decks, I think it's a 2/5. Yeah, agreed.
And there were so many soldiers in white. Even if you're not in white, I feel like blue will probably have a ton as well. All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving on, Arcane Proxy. We've got a 7 mana wizard. You can pay 3 mana, 1 colorless blue to make it a 2/1 instead of a 4/3. But either way, when Arcane Proxy enters the battlefield, if you cast it, exile target instant or sorcery card with mana value less than or equal to Arcane Proxy's power from the graveyard. Copy that card. You may cast a copy without paying its mana cost. So 2 CMC or 4 CMC for a spell that's free. There's a substantial number of instants or sorceries that cost 2, so the prototype here is probably pretty reasonable. But I think this is one of the few that we really like casting for 4. But either way, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I'm not as thrilled with this card as with some of the other prototype ones we've seen so far. Both seem kind of underwhelming, but in the right deck with the right high quality instants or sorceries, some good removal or things like that, then yeah, I could see this card being pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this isn't going to be a home run. For a mythic, it feels pretty underwhelming. But I also, if I'm in blue, I don't see myself cutting it either, most likely. There'll be enough spells where I'm like, oh, this is probably fine to play, but not going to be a huge game changer most of the time. So probably like a 3 or a 3/5 for me.
Yeah, I think I've got it as a 3.
All right, we have a Coastal Bulwark, a 2 mana 1/3 defender. That's familiar. And it gets +2/+0 as long as you control an island. And you can pay 2 mana and surveil 1. I like the surveil little bonus there as a defender. It's good to hold open your, to defend against the more aggressive decks, and you also get to help smooth your hand draw, which is really cool. Yeah, I think this card is an okay filler. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, in blue at least, when we're talking about it here, it's a 2 mana 3/3 defender, which, those cards see play as long as they have something else relevant going on, which this does.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So probably like a 2 for me?
Yeah, I think 2 sounds about right.
All right, Combat Courier. We have a 1 mana 1/1. You can pay 2, sacrifice it, and draw a card and unearth. That's pretty cute. Get a little early beats in. You can sack, replace it, and then bring it back and do the same thing. Not a bad card. It's a construct, so it's going to trigger some of the Artificer flying abilities we saw in white. Any sort of other artifact things going on. I like it.
Yeah, it's just some card advantage on a tiny body, but a body nonetheless.
Yeah, so probably like a 2/5. I think there's enough synergy here with this artifact coming back into play, like synergies with Unearth. Some cool stuff.
Yeah, no, I think it's like a 2/5, yeah.
All right, Curate. We have a 2-mana instant. You can surveil 2 and then draw a card. I typically like to draw 2 cards, but this is instant speed and only 2 mana, so it's a pretty good rate, but not exactly card advantage, more hand smoothing. So probably a 23rd playable card for me.
Yeah, if you're in a deck with a bunch of unearthed stuff, then maybe it gets a little better because you can put them in the graveyard. But yeah, right around a 23rd playable.
2?
I think it's a 2. Yeah, the one interesting thing here, just for note, I mean, this is a reprint of Strixhaven from Strixhaven, but it actually just says Surveil now. This is one of the cards they changed the wording on.
Yep. Defabricate 2 mana for an instant. Choose 1. Counter target artifact or enchantment spell. If a spell was countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. That's nice for getting rid of the artifacts that can come back with Unearth. And you can also counter target activated or triggered ability. Yeah, there's probably enough artifacts where this is like a 23rd playable card.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much right. Every deck's going to have artifacts. Most of them are probably going to be, the ones people are playing are going to be pretty good. There's a lot of them in the set. So, yeah, I think you can, kind of like Disenchant, you can, find a way to play this, even if it's not quite as good because you have to have it at the time.
Yeah, I think this is worse than Disenchant, and I think it's also worse than like an Essence Scatter, which we haven't seen yet, but like
Agreed.
I'm more willing to play that. So for me, this is like a 1.5. If you're a little short on playables, you can run it, but I wouldn't be trying to.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds right to me.
All right, Depth Charge Colossus, 9 mana or 6 mana. You can make it a 6/6 or a 9/9, but either way, it's going to have, it doesn't untap during untap step. You can pay 3 mana to untap it, however. So it's just a huge idiot that doesn't untap, and you have to pay extra. So it's a 6 mana 6/6 that doesn't untap. Dreadmaw Colossus, please come home. Like, I mean, granted, this isn't blue, so we, fine. And also we have these Power Stones, which are going to make this cheaper to cast and easy to activate its ability, sure. But I'm still, like, kind of missing Dreadmaw Colossus, right? Like, why are we messing with this big idiot who's way overcosted?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what does it have that's better than Dreadmaw Colossus? Okay, it can be cast off Power Stones. It has this bigger version of itself. If you're playing this late game and you have Power Stones, it kind of has pseudo vigilance. You can attack and then just pay the 3 to untap it, so it can also block.
Yeah, I mean, the flexibility of being able, like, if you're just untapping it to attack and then leaving it tapped, it kind of sucks. But if you're attacking and then untapping it, which is kind of cool, leaving it back on D, is pretty neat. I guess that's sort of pseudo vigilance if you're ahead on mana, but yeah, I think it's fine, but it's a lot of hoopla and less exciting compared to the other prototype cards we've seen.
Agreed. I think this really only fits in like the kind of blue-green Power Stone decks.
Yeah, I like that. So probably a 2?
Yeah, because it's never amazing. It's still a 9-drop that dies to a Disenchant.
Yeah, true. Desynchronize, we have a 5 mana instant speed. So target non-land permanent's owner puts it on top or bottom. And then scry 2. So cool. I like tempo cards that are not card disadvantage. And then the scry kind of gives you a little bit of, in my opinion, card advantage because you get to cycle some of those things away that you don't want, like extra lands late in the game. Lets you draw more actual gas, which is great. Yeah, this is fine. It's instant speed too, which is good. Probably like a 2/5 for me. I'll probably run one of these in most decks.
Yeah, 2/5 sounds right. It's a little worse than the first party ability is a little worse than just putting it on top because it gives them the option to get rid of the card if it's not something that redrawing will help. But Scry 2 more than makes up for that.
Yeah, it is a little worse because give them the option, I agree. But most of the time, if I'm casting this, it's probably on something they're going to want anyway because I don't want them to have it. So I think that downside is pretty minor in comparison.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's fine. It's a 2/5.
2/5, yeah.
Drafna, founder of Latnam.
Latnam.
Oh, I said it right. Oh, these words are hard, and I don't know Drafna, founder of Latnam, 2 mana for a 2/1 human artificer advisor. You can pay 2 mana, return target artifact you control to its owner's hand. Sweet, great with ETBs. You pay 3 mana, copy target artifact spell you control. Copy becomes a token.
One thing I'm not 100% sure how it works is if you're copying something you're prototyping in, what that becomes. I think it becomes a prototype copy because that's what it is on the stack. But I'd have to check when they release the rules update. But I'm pretty sure what it'll copy the prototype version because that's what the spell is on the stack.
Okay. Someone in chat is suggesting it should become the base.
Could be, yeah.
card.
I could very well be wrong.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because you're right, like when you cast it for the prototype is on the stack. So copying that would make sense. But also I could see it, Magic just not working that way. So we will leave that one either way. It's a cool ability. You get to copy it over and over again, which is really cool. And trigger ETBs, maybe that's the most important thing, even if you don't want to copy it later, if you don't have the mana. So yeah, it's also a kind of protection as well. You can bounce any of your artifacts that your opponents might be wanting to kill or remove. And just getting to replay them, which is nice. So probably going to have some good synergy in any deck, no matter how relevant your deck is to this particular synergy. I feel like it's probably going to be good no matter what, just because of the nature of the format. So probably pretty good. What do you think? I like it at like a 3/5.
Yeah, there's just so much this can do. Like even with the prototype stuff, regardless of what it does to the copy, it gives you the option of playing something for a prototype cost, and then if you want the other version later, when you have more mana, you can bounce it. Cast
it. It really does do a lot.
Yeah.
So rating?
Yeah, I like where you did, right around a 3/5.
All right, I'll let you take this one.
Falaji Archaeologist. It's a 2-mana 0/3 human scout. When it enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. You may put a non-creature, non-land card from among the cards milled this way into your hand. If you don't, put a +1/+1 counter on this. So you either have a 2-mana 0/3 that draws a card. Draws basically an instant sorcery or non-creature artifact. Or you get a 2-mana 1/4.
I feel like because it says non-land, non-creature, which is the bulk of your deck, more often than not, this is going to be a 2-mana 1/4, which I'm not super interested in. But if you have any other things like cards that want to be in your graveyard because they have an earth, or if there's another chunk of things that you would want to do with cards in your graveyard, then sure, this seems fine. Probably a 23rd playable card, but probably a 1.5 for me in most decks.
Yeah, I'm guessing this is aiming at like maybe blue-red, which has some, whenever you cast a non-creature spell triggers. So you might have a higher concentration of spells in that deck. But yeah, most of the time it's going to be a 1/4, which is good rate. I mean, especially if you're like trying to win through the air. 2-mana 1/4 is not bad on the ground.
Yeah. All right. What are you thinking rating-wise?
I think I've got it like a 2.
Excellent. So about a half point off there. Flow of Knowledge, 5 mana for an instant. Draw a card for each island you control, then discard 2 cards. So you really want to have 5 islands before this is relevant? Unless you have like extra lands you can pitch to, which is fine, but those lands are probably 50% likely to be islands, so same deal here. What do you think, Yanks? I like that it's instant speed.
Yeah, it's instant speed at 4 islands. You're drawing 4, discard 2, so you're still +1 card with some filtering.
Yeah,
that's okay.
If one of the cards in your hand was already a land or whatever that you wanted to pitch.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of that. There's an uncommon cycle that promotes these monocolor ones. You saw the white removal spell. Yeah, I think, obviously, mono blue, this card's amazing. Heavy blue in a 2-color deck, it's probably like a 3 in that deck, and then, it's playable otherwise. So you're looking at probably a 2/5 on average.
Yep. I like it at a 2 or a 2/5. Obviously, if you're mono blue, that's a different story, but the average deck won't be mono blue.
Yep, agreed.
All right. Forging the Anchor, 3 mana for a sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal any number of artifact cards from among them and put the revealed cards into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay, I mean, the average deck probably does not care. But there's going to be some really heavy artifact decks that might. The average deck, Yanks, what do you think?
Yeah, it's tough because, like, what can you get to realistically? Like, you're playing 17 lands. I guess you could have a deck that's like 15 artifacts if you've got a ton of artifact creatures. Like, at which point this card is probably going to average you getting 2, which is pretty good, but anything short of that, it's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah. And the thing is if you're jamming that many, they're probably pretty low quality as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
at
you're
that
probably
point,
stretching.
I'd rather just play good things that are actual creatures or, actual colors or whatever.
Yeah, because if you're at 10 artifacts, you're hitting like 1.25, which is just not good. So, yeah, I think you need, 15, 16 artifacts, which is not impossible in this set, but you're right. You're gonna be finding some filler at that point.
Yep. So there is a good build around. You'll get lucky. You're the only person at the whole table that wants artifacts, sure, but that's not the average deck. So for me, this is just a 1.
Yeah, I agree. And somebody will find a way to draw 5 cards with this against me and piss me off.
For sure. Absolutely. Hulking Metamorph, a 9 mana or 4 mana. It's either a 3/3 for 4 or a 7/7 if you pay the 9. But either way, you may have Hulking Metamorph enter the battlefield as a copy of an artifact or creature you control, except it's an artifact creature in addition to its other types, and its power and toughness are equal to Hulking Metamorph's power and toughness. So you're basically copying the ETB effects, you're copying the abilities, and it's just like a 4 mana 3/3 that just gets more abilities, which is fine.
Yeah, 4 mana for a clone is pretty common, but we usually get everything, and a lot of times the benefit of that is you're able to copy something huge, and still get the abilities and everything else like that. So I don't love this card, but you're still getting 4 mana 3/3 with the best abilities on the board is pretty good.
Yeah. The flip side of that is you have the pleasure, and with Power Stones, I don't think it's too bad, but you have the pleasure of copying your 1/1 flyer and turning it into a 7/7 flyer, and that's kind of neat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you get a little bit of flexibility there. Your clone can trade up at 4, and you can just dump big mana into making a big dumb idiot from a creature that has a nice ability but isn't necessarily a huge threat on its own. So
yeah, or if you can figure out a way to blink this card, it'll come back as a 7/7.
Cute.
Reanimate it in some way.
Plus all the just generic artifact stuff that's powerful.
Yeah.
So most of the time, I think you're just going to cast this as a 4 mana clone, and we'll be happy to do so. What do you think in rating wise?
Clones are usually pretty strong. I think this is like maybe a 3/5.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see a 3 or a 3/5, depending on if you have the ability to cast it with some Power Stones.
Agreed.
I will let you take this one.
Hurkyl's Final Meditation. 7 mana, 4 triple blue for an instant. As long as it's not your turn, the spell costs 3 more to cast, so it'll cost you 10 on not your turn. Return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands, end the turn. Yeah. 10 mana, kind of, I don't know. This is a bizarre card.
So, yeah. It's interesting. So it's just like kind of like a cyclonic rift on your turn is what you want to be doing. Just returning everything, bouncing it all to people's hands. This feels more ADHD to me, but I mean, I could probably still see running this with Power Stones in... I don't really care about casting it on my opponent's turn, although that is quite convenient if I do get to. Power Stones, return everything on your end step, and then just me be the one to develop, seems pretty solid. But yeah, I'm...
Well, so remember, Power Stones can't help you cast this.
God damn it, I keep forgetting that Power Stones are suckier than I think they are. Damn it.
Yeah, this is good against Power Stones, because it kills them all.
Yeah, and there's a lot of soldier tokens and things like that, so, I mean...
Playing this on your turn is awful. Because literally, not only are you bouncing everything, you immediately have to discard. Most likely.
Well, by the time you're this late in the game, you probably don't.
I guess
have
it's non-land.
I guess
and it's non-land permanents. For some reason, I was thinking this was upheaval, where it's all permanents. So it's not as bad, but this just feels more like an EDH card to me.
I agree. I feel like there's times where I will play this and it'll be weird, but it's probably like a 2.
Yeah, it's probably like a 2, but it's story time now.
Okay, story time. You have 2 minutes.
Hurkyle is the name a lot of players may have heard before from primarily Hurkyl's Recall, which is 1 in a blue that returns all artifacts a target player controls to their hand. It's been a key sideboard card in like Modern Vintage for a long time. But basically, Hurkyle was one of the founders of this third way, one of the sages of Latnam, the island school that was studying magic where no one else was. And we saw a card earlier, Drafna, her and her husband Drafna, were at Teresia City when the armies of the Falaji, Mishra's armies, reached there. And basically, Hurkyl's Recall, what this card is also demonstrating is she kind of goes out there by herself, like after the art, like it's destroying the walls, they can't break through, blah blah blah. She goes out there, and it's like this small woman up against these giant dragon engines, and cast a spell, and they all disappear. Aww. And then, of course, the sad part of the story is, well, it doesn't stop all the humans in the army, and the humans rush in, and she dies. But that was like the first evidence again of a spell being cast on Dominaria at this point, since the knowledge had been lost to the brand. And this is kind of a bigger version of that same effect, and that's what the story spotlight is there.
Cute. I like the you said dragon engines and stuff. You could see that in the art. That's very neat.
Yeah.
Good eye, Yanks. So we think it's like a 2 or something. We also have the Hurkyle Master Wizard, a 3-mana 2/3 human wizard advisor that says at the beginning of your end step, if you've cast a non-creature spell this turn, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. For each card among non-creature spells you've cast this turn, you may put a card of that type from among the revealed cards into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Okay. It's a fine rate creature on its own, and it gets you some card advantage when you cast instants or sorceries or non-creature artifacts or enchantments. Like, you can hit some stuff, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're in blue, so theoretically you're probably going to have some spells. So if you've played a sorcery, you get a chance to draw a sorcery out of your top 5. Mm-hmm. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and like you can do multiple things, and it gives you some incentive also to, when you have this out, play your instance. It doesn't work real well with counter magic, but that's okay. We'll forgive them for that one, and it's a great rate creature on its own, so I'm pretty happy with it. What are you thinking rating wise?
Yeah, I think on its own, it's Hurkyl's probably like a 3, but in the right sort of if there is a blue deck that's heavy on spells, it's going to be.
Agreed. I was also kind of at a 3 in the average whatever deck, but I think you can kind of tailor your deck a little bit to where this can actually hit pretty hard. All right, Involuntary Cooldown. We have a 4-mana sorcery. Tap 2 target artifacts and or creatures. Put 2 stun counters on each of them. Okay, that's a lot of stun counters. Now it is a sorcery, so you don't actually get to lock them down for the 3rd turn like you normally do, right? If you were to cast it on their turn before they attack you kind of thing. But this is really good when you're on the attack step, right? When you are the aggressor, which is neat.
I'm just going to go back to our Dominaria United set review when I said they're going to continue to use stun counters, and you disagreed with me.
Continuing to use it is one thing. At one point, you were saying that they were going to go back and add it to a bunch of things, which I disagreed with.
Oh, I don't. Maybe then I just misspoke. I never thought they were going to retroactively do it. I just think that every version of that effect going forward would use it.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I could see it, but I don't know if everything will do it.
No, we don't know that yet for sure.
It might.
It happened once, so I'm gonna take my win while I can get it, and then if it's later, I'm gonna pretend I never said it.
That's not true. You're always very good about cards that we disagree on, and I'm right on. So yeah, like it would be interesting if that's like a theme through, because this kind of does feel like a 3 set, like we don't normally get anymore.
It is true. That is true.
So
this whole these 2 sets plus potentially the Phyrexian ones coming up.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they're meant to, like they're not drafted together, but they do feel like they go together, and they're sort of formulating a standard. So it makes sense that they would definitely keep this.
I agree.
And maybe it's just a new effect that they're going to do. Doesn't untap on its controller's untap step. Is just a thing of the past. And also, it's a mouthful, so that's fine by me.
But no, I mean, this card is fine. These effects are playable in the tempo decks, but just card disadvantage in your control decks.
Yep. So, like I said, if you're the blue-white soldiers and you want to get in there, this is a card you'll run, but probably still a 2. It's a bit expensive.
Agreed.
All right. Keeper of the Cadence? Cadence. Sorry. There's no N in before the D there. Keeper of the Cadence. 5 mana for a human wizard. It's a 2/5, and for 3 mana, you can put target artifact, instant, or sorcery card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. Ooh, this is always kind of cool for long, drawn-out formats that are going to, like, possibly end in...
Risk and milling.
Yeah, risk and milling for sure. And it also, if you have any shuffle abilities, it's going to put all your most powerful spells back into your deck, which is always kind of cool.
Yep, and it can send their unearthed things to the bottom of their deck so they can't reuse them.
Ooh, that's cool. Yep. I like that. And honestly, there are some times where this ability does win games just because you're like, oh, I can't win the inevitability game, so I guess I'm going to lose. And it's cool. So, and it's an okay rate on its own. It's a human wizard. It's probably fine. It's probably like a 2/5.
Yeah, I think I'm only wanting this in like my controlling decks, but yeah, I'll play it in there. Just weird with this card, a little bit the art and the name kind of makes me think it's a DJ. Like Keeper of the Cadence of like the rhythm and that sort of thing, and you got like record shaped things. I don't know. Just made me think of a DJ.
Yeah, I like that. All right, we have the Koilos Rock. 5 mana for a flash flyer. It's a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, create a tapped Power Stone. Okay.
I mean, we've played 5 mana 3/3 flash flying like spirits before.
Mm-hmm.
It was Stormlight something, I think, from Shadows over Innistrad. And
yeah, and they didn't make a mana source, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
Yeah, I think it's like a 2 if you really want the Power Stone token, 2/5.
Yeah, I'm maybe a little higher just because I really do value Flash as a mechanic. The flexibility of it being a combat trick is really cool to me. Also, sometimes your opponent's just casting on their end step, and they're just like, oh crap, I didn't leave back enough blockers. So it just has some solid flexibility. So I'm gonna bump it a smidge, but not a ton.
Also, surprising for what this looks just like a bird, more story time.
Okay.
So Koilos, if you remember the card Caves of Koilos, the land. Koilos is where the brothers discover the power stone that becomes the might stone and weak stone. That we see a card for in this set. And they are flying, they see like they've been they've been reconstructing ornithopters. And they took one up into the air, and I believe it was Urza who, when he was flying, spotted these like patterns in the sand, which ended up being at Koilos. So then they went to investigate, and in the process they were attacked by a rock, and dove and eventually crashed, and while trying to repair it, they ended up in the Caves of Koilos. And that's how they found the Power Stone and opened the gate to Phyrexia and how everything bad happened.
Wow, so it's all this bird's fault.
Exactly.
I see. Okay, fair enough. Bird, you're an idiot. Go home, you're drunk. All right, Latnam Adept. We have a 4 mana 3/3 human wizard that says whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this only needs to trigger once, and you got a pretty decent rate here. I think this is nice in those control-y sort of draw card decks, and we're seeing a lot of things that are working well with this. It's a fine playable, probably a 2/5.
Yeah, and that's the stated archetype for blue-black is the, draw multiple cards and get benefits off of it.
Yep.
So anytime on your turn you can loot, that's the second card you've drawn that turn. So yeah, I like this card a lot. I think 2/5 is good, but
in blue-black it might be a 3.
Exactly. Some of those blue-black decks are really going to want this card.
Yeah. Like the average deck, any other color, like blue X, blue X, not black, you'll have a few triggers here and there, and that will make it worth its weight, pull its weight. And then if you get to be in black, then great. This actually can be quite the beater for you. All right. We have a Machine Over Matter. 2 mana for an instant. This costs 1 less to cast if you control an artifact. Artifact creature specifically. And then you can return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Okay, so it's an unsummon if you control the artifact creature, and if not, it's just a bounce for 2. Little underwhelming, but fine.
Yeah, it's non-land permanent, not creature. It can target your own stuff, so it's flexible.
Yeah, way more flexible than we've been seeing. A lot of times it's just yours, just theirs, or creature specific. So yeah, I like that.
I promise not to do this too many times, but more story time. This is a really cool one that I think you'll like. Urza ends up after the brothers split up in the book. He ends up at Yosha, and the warlord of Yosha has a daughter who he's trying to marry, and basically she's turning down everybody. This is kind of a classic, trope, right? The princess that's turning down all the princes. Mm-hmm. Blah, blah. So he builds this enormous statue, this monolith, and that's this green thing that's being held right here. And basically he decreed that anybody that could come move the statue across the courtyard would marry the princess. And so Urza, realizing that because he has his own plans and he wants to access to some of the stuff that they have, instead of moving it himself, he builds a machine to move it across the courtyard after, dozens of people had tried and injured themselves trying to move this giant statue. And the title of this card, Machine Over Matter, right? The phrase mind over matter in the book, he says, he built, by the power of my mind, I will move the statue. I built this machine with my mind.
So does the machine get to marry her, though?
Well, so that was kind of that actually that's brought up in the story. He's all pissed that he thinks the warlord thinks he's being made a fool of, and the princess is like, well, you didn't care about my opinion when you decided to marry me off to the, strongest ox or oaf in the kingdom. Why are you asking my opinion now? And then he eventually relents and they get married, and that continues the storyline.
Okay, that's a very cute one. I do like that. Well done. Holy crap. Everybody's going to be so disappointed in the next couple of sets when you don't know anything again. I know. Rating-wise, Yanks, what do you think? I think it's like a 2/5?
Yeah, I think it's like a 2/5.
All right. Mightstone's animation. We have a 4-mana aura enchant artifact. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. I like it already, or something that replaces itself. Enchant artifact is a creature with a base power toughness 4/4. This is better than it is in most sets because of these dumb power stones.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. And it replaces itself. Turns an idiot power stone, which we've seen just kind of incidentally happens on accident, right? So it just turns an idiot power stone into a 4/4 and you get a free card out of the deal. Fantastic. I think this is great.
Yeah, we saw how powerful, and I can't think of the exact name of it, the giant scissors was in one of the core sets.
That made it into Affinity.
And that was only a 2-mana spell, but it didn't replace itself. So, yep. This can, all of a sudden it's basically a haste 4/4 out of nowhere.
And I think there's a lot more just useless artifacts lying about in this set.
Yeah.
So, great. I mean, the soldiers are just colorless. They're not artifact. But still, power stones. I think that it replaces itself. The average deck, if it only has a few power stones, 2 or 3, probably not running it. But the power stone deck, you'll want this. You'll know when you want this. It's probably a split rating. But I'm going to rate it based on, there will be enough power stone decks that will want this. It's, pretty easy to tell. So probably like A 3?
Yeah, and there's going to be some card somewhere, probably like there's going to be a cheap artifact with good abilities that's like a 1/1 that you can make a 4/4, and you don't feel too bad if you get 2-for-1s because you've replaced itself.
Like the little idiot that when you sack, you can draw a card and then you can bring it back. Things like that.
Yeah.
Or if you have some stuff like that, great. You can slap this on it, do the thing. Fantastic. Yeah. So that's probably going to be fine. There'll be plenty of decks that won't want it, sure, but there will be plenty that will. One with the multiverse. Oh boy. Getting Marvel-y up in here. So 8 mana for an enchantment. It says whenever you look at the top card of your... You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. I like that. And then it says once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from your hand or the top of your library without paying its mana cost. That's cool, but it is 8 mana, so I'm probably not super interested in this in Limited.
Yeah, I mean, we're used to seeing cheaper versions of this that let you do the first 2 things, but you don't get to do something for free. And that's why this is more expensive here. If you can find a way to cast this reliably, I'm not sure you really can, but if you do, this card's amazing.
I mean, Power Stones. Oh, no, you can't. Fuck. Why can't I cast them with Power Stones? I just spilled my drink on me because I am a child. Moving on. I'm leaving that in. Yeah, I think this is a constructed card. You're going to cheat this into play somehow with some crazy omniscience, some nonsense stuff, but I don't really care. Probably not playing this. Yeah, you can't use Power Stones. Stupid. I'm going to give this a 1.5.
And you could use a Power Stone to, run your washer and dryer to clean your shirt later, though.
I think it's mostly in my hair. I didn't feel it on my shirt, but I do feel my hair is a little damp. Let me put it on my jeans just to make sure it doesn't get on the only white shirt that I own. Okay. Retrieval Agent, 4 mana for a 2/5 human soldier. Retrieval Agent gets +1 -0 until end of turn. It's got a big booty. So we see this ability a lot in blue creatures, and I think this is fine. It's also a relevant creature type, so this is fine.
Yeah, this sort of flowstone ability that was originally only in red has moved a bit into blue.
Really? I thought it was kind of a blue ability before, because there was a ton of, blue... I thought it kind of recently moved to red. I used to see it a ton in blue. In, the weird, jellyfishy weird creatures.
You did see it sometimes in that. I believe it started in, Tempest Block on Wrath, where everything was made of flowstone.
That's too old for me to remember.
And it was mostly in red there, but you did see it occasionally in things like Morphling. You did occasionally see it in shapeshifter type things.
Yeah, that's where I'm used to seeing it. So this was not surprising to me. It was just the human soldier version of a shapeshifter, sure.
Yeah.
And I think the Kavu that we had recently was the first time I've seen that in a while. But
yeah.
Yeah, this is a fine card. It's a human soldier, so great. I'm gonna put it in most of my blue decks. What do you think in rating wise? I think it's a 2 or a 2/5.
Yeah, I think it's a 2/5 because it's got a little bit of flexibility. Plus, it's going to be really good in those blue decks that are trying to win through the air.
So someone posted a link in the Indigenous Scab, the Metropolis Sprite, the Morphling, the Mist Walker from Kaldheim. These are the ones I remember in recent years. But I do, scrolling back up, see a ton of old red cards that I do not remember at all. So
yeah, and there's some old black cards that actually, even older black cards that I'm seeing in here that had it. So,
and I definitely played for some of these, but this was not of recent memory. And I think the Mistwalker, Metropolis Sprite, and the Indigenous Scab are the ones that stick out in my mind when I think of this ability.
Yeah, I always think of red because there was every card it seemed that had flowstone something in it had that ability.
Water Servant and Water Corsair too.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I did not think about the older black cards. Those probably were the first ones.
Yeah. Interesting. It's funny that when you see something like this and you have, like, to me, it was a very iconic blue ability. But to you, who has like memory of a lot more of the older cards, it was a very iconic red. So it's cool to see it sort of jump around like that.
Yeah, anyway. It is, because the most iconic card to have the ability is blue. I mean, is Morphling.
All the water elementals, that when I was, I don't remember what I said, but like flowy creatures or whatever.
Yeah,
I was thinking of the water serpents.
Yeah, water serpent, shore crasher, elemental, Cyan, glaciers, all those ones.
Yeah. Okay, moving on here, guys. We rated that one, right? Yes, we did.
Yes. Yep.
Next, we have Scatter Ray, 2-mana instant for a counter target artifact or creature spell unless its controller pays 4. 4 is a hefty sum. That is the line where I'm like, okay, pretty happy with this sort of tax on a card. And it says artifact or creature. So it's sort of an Essence Scatter plus, if you're counting the 4 as enough, which I like.
Yeah, this card is certainly playable. I think it's worse than Essence Scatter, but in this format, it's probably not much worse with the number of artifacts you're going to see.
I'm thinking it's equal to Essence Scatter in this format alone, just because of that number. I'm giving it sort of a wash there. And also, 4 is a pretty hefty tax, so I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I think the question we haven't really seen yet, because I think we won't see them much until we see the pure colorless artifacts, is how many non-creature artifacts are relevant.
Yeah. Well,
most of the relevant ones we've seen have been creatures.
Definitely
already.
True.
That being said, it's like I don't know, 2.5.
I like it at a 2.5.
Yeah, I guess it is a little worse because you can pay the 4 with Power Stones.
Oh, now you can use Power Stones. Okay. Sky Strike Officer. We've got a 3-mana 2/3 with flying. Okay, I like it already. It's a human soldier. Okay, even better. When it attacks, create a 1/1 colorless soldier token. Okay, I like it. Tap 3 untapped soldiers, draw a card. Holy shice. What the? I love this card.
This card is amazing.
It's amazing.
Also, it reminds me that we were wrong a few minutes ago. Those colorless soldiers are artifacts.
I thought they were, and then I talked myself into thinking they weren't.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. For some reason, I was like, I think they're colorless artifacts, but I was like, oh, maybe not.
No, they are, yeah. I was wrong on that too. So, no, I think this card is great. This is absolutely a reason to play that white spell that makes 4 soldiers.
And you can tap them the turn it comes in too. So like it does have some sort of effect on the field if you have enough soldiers, which there kind of is a lot of them, so it's not too hard. I think this is a 4/5.
There's a ton of soldiers. You only need 2 other ones when it comes into play, because even if with something like this, it can tap itself for this because it's a cost.
Yeah.
Part of the ability. So
I love it. 4/5.
Yeah, this card's fantastic.
Woohoo! This card is a straight bomb. All right, splitting the Power Stone. 3 mana for a sorcery. As an additional cost, sack an artifact, and then you can create 2 tapped Power Stones. If you sacrificed a legendary, you draw a card in addition. This feels more constructed to me, but if you really want Power Stones, then I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is constructed / a lore card, right? It's the moment that basically the brothers split apart.
Yeah.
When they both grabbed half of the stone and it broke and they refused to figure out a way to put it back together.
I see. So they split the baby in half. Great.
Yes.
This is a 1.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Spotter Thopter, 8 mana or 4 mana. You can get it as a 2/3 or a 4/5. Either way, it's got flying, and when it enters the battlefield, scry X, where X is its power. It's a little underwhelming as a prototype as well. And pretty expensive. You need Power Stones. It's a fine card, but nothing to be thrilled about, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see 3 mana 2/3 flyers. Now they don't get to scry 2, but I think I'd rather just have the 3 mana 2/3 flyer. But the fact that you can dump mana into this if you're in that blue-green Power Stone deck, sure. It just feels like there's going to be enough of these top-end cards where you can find something.
Agreed. My concern is that my 4-drop slots in most limited formats tend to be a little clunky. So this is not what I'm looking for in that 4-drop slot. Now, the 5-drop...
Definitely.
The 8 power thing I like. Sure, scry 4, get a 4 power flyer. That's fantastic. But I need a way to get this out as an 8-drop, and the average deck is just not going to be super comfortable doing that. So you need to be prepared to cast this for 4, which I'm not exactly happy to do. So it's probably a 2 or a 2/5 for me.
Yeah, I mean, Scry 4 is great. I mean, it's a great effect, especially at 8 mana, because your lands are basically worthless at that point. But it's still like 4/5, 8 for like 8 mana, 4/5 draw card, say. Still not very good. So, yeah, not a huge fan of this card. The flexibility makes it playable, but not much more than that.
All right, moving on. We have Stern Lesson, 3 mana for a draw 2 cards, then discard a card, create a tapped Power Stone. This I kind of like. It's sort of like a thrill, but you get to loot instead of rummage, and you get the Power Stone, which I want, because I want to cast an 8/8 idiot flyer. Sure. I think this is a fine card. I'll probably give this the... With the Power Stone, I feel like I'm going to want them in most decks, so it's probably closer to a 3.
Yeah, it's somewhere in that 2/5 to 3 range, depending on the value of the Power Stone. I think the art on this is kind of cool. Like, that style is kind of like... almost like the animation style used in, like, Arcane.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just thought that it's a little different.
And it reminds me of, like, the story of, like, in Korra, where the crazy dad bloodbender takes the kids out and they're, like, angry. Anyway, sorry. Ignore me. Surge Engine, 2 mana for an artifact construct. It's a 3/2 for 2 mana with Defender. For 1 mana, 1 island specifically, it loses Defender and gains this creature can't be blocked. Wait. This creature can't be blocked? For 1 mana?
Mm-hmm. It's mythic for a reason.
Oh, it is mythic. I just saw that. I didn't even notice it was a mythic that we were reading, and I was just like, wait, where's the... what? And then for 3 mana, it becomes a blue and has base power 5/4. Activate if Surge Engine didn't have Defender. Okay, so you have to stack these. Okay, that makes sense. Draw 3 cards. Activate only if it is blue and only once. Okay, so for 1 mana, it becomes a 3/4 unblockable. For 4 mana, it's a 5/4 unblockable blue creature. And then for 11 mana, it's a 5/4 unblockable blue creature that draws you 3 cards. Huh.
And none of these things say till end of turn, right? This is like your Figure of Destiny, where it... or Evolved Sleeper from the last set, where it just gets these things permanently.
Oh. I thought I had to do this every turn. So it's even better, because it just... Yeah. For 3 mana, you just get a 3/2 unblockable forever?
Yeah. And then the next turn, you just pay 3 more, and it's a 5/4. And you can fuel this with Power Stone, all the abilities with Power Stones. And the card itself.
What? Kill it with fire right now. Oh my god, I'm gonna die to this, and I'm gonna be so tilted. This is gonna be this is the anger card of the set. Someone's gonna play this on 2, and then they're gonna proceed to just go coast to coast on me, and I'm going to be freaking livid. Oh my god. Okay, fine. It's a 4.5 because it can be removed with a shock, and then you don't win the game. But it also could just win the game if your opponent can't find a shock.
These are the kind of things, and I know it's a mythic, but these are the kind of things why I'm main decking my Disenchants.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, I mean, this is stupid. It doesn't even make you pay. Like, I thought this was insane when I thought you had to pay the blue every turn. And you don't even have to do that. I'm so mad. I'm actually mad. Okay, I'm going to move on before I just stab something. Take Flight, 4 mana, is an enchant aura. An enchant creature gets +1/+0 and has flying. Whenever this creature attacks, draw a card. What? It doesn't even have to connect. It gets bigger. it gets flying, and it just draws you cards?
Yep.
It doesn't even have to connect.
It costs 4, so that's expensive. Like, you see your curiosity effects where it has to connect, and that only costs 1.
I think 4 to give your big green idiot flying that also draws you a card every turn is pretty good, especially because if you're careful when you cast it, it's going to replace itself immediately, and could just be a lethal. You could just be like, oh, surprise, 6/6 flying, eat it. Oh, no, it's a 7/6 flying, eat it.
Yeah, the card can be very powerful, but it's 4 mana, and you got to be careful with it because you can get 2 for 1.
You do have to be careful, but I don't find that this is game winning. This is definitely a game winning uncommon.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it carries some risk like all auras do. So.
It does, I agree, but I think this is quite strong. We've seen this before, like Sarah's Guidance. It was a white one that gave like lifelink and flying. And,
on Sarah's Wings.
Yeah, stuff like that. Like this is what this reminds me of. It's just like blue, very different abilities, but very freaking powerful, and you're gonna lose to this card a lot.
Oh yeah.
Rating-wise,
it demands an answer.
It does, yeah. Rating-wise, I think because it does demand an answer, I think it's like a 4 for me.
Yeah, I think I've got it at 3/5. Like, you do have to have a board, right? This is terrible if you're behind.
Yeah.
Because you probably can't attack. Like, it's completely dead card if you're behind. Other than maybe creating a flying blocker to 2 for 1 yourself.
It's such a good card draw engine, though. Oh my god.
Yeah. It can be very strong. I don't quite have it as a 4 because it's just, in a certain phase of the game where you're behind. It's
not as consistent as most 4s, but it's going to perform like a 4 when it does. Holy crap. Oh, Planeswalker. Okay, Teferi. Temporal Pilgrim.
Everybody loves Teferis.
5 mana. God, go tuck yourself. 5 mana. Whenever you... Oh, God. It's got a static ability, too, because why not? Whenever you draw a card, put a loyalty counter on Teferi. Blech.
It has no plus ability, so that basically is why.
It shouldn't. He's an idiot. 0 mana.
He's the protagonist.
He doesn't need a plus ability if it doesn't cost any ability to draw cards. Jiminy Christmas, you greedy blue bastard.
Well, then how else could you get to -12?
No. -2, create a 2/2 blue spirit creature token with vigilance, and whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Sure, why not? -12, target opponent chooses a permanent they control and returns it to their hand. Then shuffle each non-land permanent they control into their library. It's a one-sided wrath. So that just ends the game. You're just like, GG.
Yes. Yeah, it's an ultimate that ends the game.
And in blue decks in Constructed, you could just draw a bajillion cards. Draw cards based on the number of islands you control. Sure. Okay. So.
Not that it's relevant for any of these formats, but Brainstorm puts 3 counters on it, even though you put 2 cards back.
So stupid. I hate you. And I don't want you to have any fun. And I hope you get
you're channeling Teferi, right? That's what he's saying to everyone else. I don't want you to have any fun. You are role playing as Teferi right now.
I did just call you a stupid blue bastard, which is I think my new favorite phrase. I'm just gonna call people that when they make me angry from now on. I think that's the new phrase. That's it. In fact, I think I should. Oh, that's gonna be your new title in Discord, actually. Yeah, done. Yeah, this guy, he draws the turn he comes into play, which is helpful. He creates a creature to protect himself. It's not game ending the turn it comes out, but he's powerful on the scale of planeswalkers, and he ticks up for free each turn as well. So, keep that in mind in addition to additional tick-ups that you might be able to acquire. I think he's great. I think he's a 4 or 5.
Yeah, I mean, if you need to protect itself, you play it, drop it down to 2, untap goes to 3, draw a card 4.
Yep.
Or if you don't need to protect itself, you're just all of a sudden, you're at 5, you untap, you draw, you're at 6, you draw, you're at 7. Yep. And then if you have any other card draw spells, Stern Lesson, you're at 9, draw equal to islands, you're at 11. Or whatever.
It goes quick. And in addition, the first, your creature is getting bigger, assuming, yeah. It's pretty nutty. So I think it's a 4 or 5. It might just get shocked the turn you play it or whatever. It's not like a big Chandra that's going to come in and wipe the board when it does do it, but it's going to give you that solid incremental value every single turn and win you the game if left to do so.
Yeah, I think I do have this one at a 5 just because it's a guarantee. Barring playing it into like an unwinnable board state, it's a guaranteed 2 for 1. Like you are getting some significant value no matter what.
Well, it's not guaranteed 2 for 1. It might just cycle itself. You might just draw a card and it might just die after that.
And then trade for something of theirs. So you've gotten a card and eaten one of theirs.
How do you trade? If you don't have creatures on the board and they have 2 creatures that are bigger than a 2/2, it just dies.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I said. I meant to say if you're playing this on a really poor board, then yes, it is not great in that situation. But I don't know.
Even on a slightly behind board, it's still pretty rough. Like a 2/2 has to get you. It has to protect itself. If they have a little flyer, if they've got one more 2/2 than you, this is kind of a ginormous cycle. I agree. It's fantastic when you're ahead or possibly at even or whatever. But it isn't going to impact the board enough the turn that it comes in for me to say that it wins you the game, which is what a 5 typically does.
Yeah. I don't know.
For me.
I think the percentage of games where your opponent resolves this that you win is going to be incredibly small.
I'm not as scared of this. I've definitely beaten... Honestly, Teferis in Constructed are typically not as scary as they are in Limited. Is not as scary as they are in Constructed. So I'm not as scared at this. I think that my opponent resolving this is not the end of the world. We can handle this. I would much rather them play this than some sort of scary Chandra most of the time. So
yeah.
Not that it isn't game winning, don't get me wrong. My 5s are very high impact win cast. And this one just doesn't quite hit that mark for me.
Yep.
The Temporal Anchor. We have a 6 mana, 3 colorless, blue, legendary artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 2. Whenever you choose to put 1 or more cards on the bottom of your library while scrying, exile that many cards from the bottom of your library. During your turn, you may play cards exiled. Oh, interesting. So you can scry them away and play them. And you could also just scry them away to play them. Huh.
Yeah, that's...
This just says draw 2.
Draw 2 as long as this is still in play.
Yes. You got to be careful not to exile everything, though, because then you end up milling yourself out, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. But no, this is great. It's too expensive. It's really hard to cast, though.
Yeah, and you don't want to exile. You don't want to scry instants to the bottom because you can only do it on your turn.
You mean sorceries?
No, sorceries are fine. You can only play things on your turn. But I mean, like counter spells and things like that.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm still like, when you said instant, I was thinking like combat tricks. There's a lot of instants that I'm happy to cast on my turn.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking typical blue decks. You're trying to, you want to be leaving mana up.
Probably not Essence Scatter, sure, but there's a fair number of things I would be happy to put to the bottom. But I think this is also just too expensive, and I don't really want to play it.
Agreed.
It's a good card draw engine, probably with some... it's an artifact. You can cast it with the stones. So with some stones, I'm maybe going to play it because it is a lot of cards that you get to draw, but it's very expensive.
Yeah, and I think the fact that people are likely going to be main decking artifact removal makes that kind of vulnerable.
Yeah, I agreed. So probably a 1/5 for me.
Yeah, I think I've got it right around a 2.
Teresian Mindbreaker. We have a 7 mana, 6/4 that when it attacks, defending player mills half their library rounded up. And you can also unearth it and attack again. So, your opponent, by the time you cast this with your stones, assuming you have them, your opponent's probably at 22 cards, we'll say. Right? That's like a fair number. And they mill to 11.
That's turn 11, other than without card draw.
Yeah. Or stones.
No, I mean the 22 cards.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I was being generous, like you could cast this much earlier with stones.
Yep.
So we'll say 22 cards, they go to 11, then it's their turn, they draw, they go to 10, and then you unearth this, and they go to 5, and then they've also had to throw something under this Mindbreaker bus, whether it dies or not. And then they're on a 4-turn clock to kill you. That seems pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think the card's fine. I mean, I don't know. You're still getting a pretty vanilla card.
No, I'm getting a vanilla cookie. When I mill my opponent out, that's the rule in the stream. Every time I mill someone out in limited,
this is true.
A cookie. And so when I see this card, I just taste cookie, and it makes me happy. So here we go. Here's the bounty card of the season. And It's a fine card. If you have some stones, I'm happy to play it. If not, I'm probably hesitant. I don't mind a 7-drop on my top end, but a 4 toughness 7-drop is typically not where I want to be. It's a little too easy to kill, but the Unearth makes that a little bit easier. So I'm probably playing it in most of my blue decks, but not over the moon about it. It's probably like a 2.
Yeah, I like that.
But I'm also going to play it in every blue deck because I want cookies. Third Path Servant, 3 mana for a 2/3, 7 mana, draw 2 cards. That's fine. That's a late game mana sink. And you can use Power Stones. Yep. I figured it out.
That's a good use for your Power Stones.
It is, yeah. And blue has the Power Stone color. It's blue and green is where you want to be for the bulk of those. And you're pretty happy to do so. And it's on rate on its own. So yeah, this card's fine. It's like a 2/5 for me.
Yep.
Thopter Mechanic, 2 mana for a 2/1 Human Artificer. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it. That seems cool. Whenever it dies, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. Cool. This is great. I like this card.
Yeah, a 2 mana 2/1 that can get bigger and leaves behind a flyer that could trigger artifact synergies. Sure.
Yep.
That sounds great.
It's doing exactly what one of the archetypes wants to do. It's going to leave behind a body. It leaves back a good body, a little flying Thopter, which I like. Yeah, I feel like this is everything I could want from a 2-drop. I think this is like a 3, maybe a 3. It's like a 3 in any deck, and then a 3/5 in the deck that is it. This is the colors for
3/5 in blue, black, 3 in blue. Otherwise,
yep. Urza's Command, 4 mana for an instant. You can choose 2. Creatures you don't control get -2/-0, which I love because this is an instant. That's great. Or create a tapped Power Stone token, or target creature, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact token. With this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control, or scry 1 and draw. Very flexible. All of these things can be powerful in the right situation. Likely one of them will be very powerful when you choose to cast it, and then you get a nice little bonus on top at instant speed. I like it. 3/5.
Yeah, I feel like the most common version of this is 4 mana, make a construct, and scry 1, draw a card, which is good, especially at instant speed. But yeah, the first one could be a blowout in the right situation.
I feel like the most common for me will be the first one, because I'll be playing a ton of blue-white soldiers, because that's just like one of the decks I played the most anyway. So yeah. I feel like I'll be in combat a lot more than you.
That's pretty typical.
Yeah. Some of us just like to have fun.
And some of us
just like to ruin everybody else's fun.
Yeah, it's fun as zero sum. I have all the fun, you have none of the fun.
Stupid. Blue bastard. 3 mana for Urza's...
You halfway through that realized you needed to finish, right?
What?
You got stupid and then you remembered you had to finish it with blue bastard.
Yeah. Urza's rebuff. We have a 3 mana, choose 1, counter target spell, or tap up to 2 target creatures. Great. Flexible, cancel. I'm in.
Yep, cancel with upside because it's flexible.
What do you think, rating-wise?
I think it's still a 2. Cancel's never great.
Better in sealed.
Better in sealed, and you do probably have more high-cost spells in people's decks that are worth countering because of prototype and Power Stones.
That's true. Urza's Power Stone Prodigy. 3 mana for a human artificer with vigilance. It's a 1/3. You can pay 1, draw a card, then discard a card. Blue-black, here we go. Whenever you discard 1 or more artifact cards, create a tapped Power Stone. This ability triggers only once per turn. Okay. So also sort of makes your blue-green decks do the thing. It also triggers all of your blue-black things, but there were a ton of things that this would just trigger in blue, like the 4-drop blue creature that every time you draw your second card, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So I feel like it's going to be very inclusive to blue activations, and I think that that's going to be pretty powerful.
Yeah, fits in multiple decks. It's perfectly fine right on its own. Looters are always good. Yeah, I like this card a lot.
I like it actually a little bit higher than I normally would have. I would have, originally I was thinking like a 2/5, but I'm thinking about all the things that this is going to do for you. And I think it's going to do a lot. And it doesn't necessarily need to be in blue-black to do it. So I'm pretty happy at like a 3.
So yeah, I agree that this is right around a 3. It's going to trigger a lot of your synergies, like you said. Quickly, I just want to, since we've talked about lore and stuff, briefly mention for anyone that doesn't know who Urza is. He is effectively the original protagonist of Magic. He wins the Brothers' War, which most people will know from the card Urza Planeswalker. Yeah, the cards in the set Urza Planeswalker kind of gives it away a bit. He comes out of it as a Planeswalker. He leads the, in storyline terms, centuries-long fight against Phyrexia, but that basically ran the entire Magic storyline from Urza's saga. This story originated back in Antiquities, but really continuous from like Urza's saga, Tempest area, all the way through Apocalypse. That was the Weatherlight saga, all kind of initiated with Urza.
Okay, very cool. I've seen Urza, he's very popular and constructed. We saw him in one of the double Modern Masters, Modern
Horizons 2, I believe.
So pretty common character, pretty used to seeing him. Weakstone Subjugation. We have a 1 mana enchant aura, enchant an artifact or a creature. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay 3. If you do, tap it. Okay, this makes sense. And then it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So you have flexibility here. So what we're used to seeing is 3 or 4 mana for comes into play, taps the creature, and doesn't untap it. This allows you a slight discount if it's already tapped, but also allows you to pay the 3 to tap it if need be. So I feel like the 3.5 mana is what we're used to seeing, which this makes sense that we would pay that extra mana to half a mana tax because you get the flexibility when you don't need it, which is nice. So this is Blue's aura removal, which is maybe a little less valuable here because more main deck disenchants because of all the crazy artifacts, but still good. Probably a 3/5 is what we give these.
Yeah, everything you said is right. The flexibility is nice to see on this card for once.
Yep. Wing Commando, 3 mana for a human soldier, 2/2 with flying and prowess. Ooh, that's cool. I like the prowess. And it's a human soldier, and it's like Windrake, and I like it. It's like a 3.
Yeah, I mean, Windrake had started to get outclassed with the Soaring Drake in the last set that was a 3 mana 2/3 flyer. So instead we go back on the stats and give it prowess, which I like way better.
There's kind of a spells deck here, right? There's a spells deck and draw multiple cards deck, which makes spells even easier to cast. I love it. All right, now we've got a Zephyr Sentinel?
Zephyr Sentinel, yep.
It is a Zephyr. Zephyr Sentinel, 2 mana, human soldier with flash and flying. It's a 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, return up to 1 other target creature you control to its owner's hand. If it was a soldier, put a +1/+1 counter on Zephyr Sentinel. Okay. 2/1 flash flying for 2 is pretty valuable on its own if you don't think about anything else, right?
Yeah. And there's a lot more to think about here, right? You can make it bigger if you bounce a soldier. You can rescue something from an aura that's on it. You can rescue something that's being targeted with the spot removal spell. There's a lot. You can just bounce something so you can trigger an ETB again. There's a lot of good things here.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that this isn't a rare. It feels like sort of a weak rare, but it feels too good for an uncommon. I'm pretty happy with this card.
Yeah, it feels like it should either be a rare or it should be an uncommon at like 3 mana.
Yeah. Because on its own, it's just a 2-powered creature for 2 with flash. Like, if you just look at only that, that's very, very good. I feel like that would be a normal uncommon for me. So, yeah, it seems good. Rating-wise, what are you thinking?
I feel like it does enough that I'm going to make this. I say this is a 3/5.
Yeah, I'm leaning up that way. I don't know, in a lot of decks, it might not quite be impactful enough to be a 3/5, but I'm leaning up that way for sure.
The fact that it can just protect anything you've got from any sort of removal spell is what I really like.
Agreed. And then you just get a nice little body that can put in some good damage. Nice little evasive creature. All right, guys. That is it. We have made it to the end of blue, and we have finished all of Yanks' fun. Fantastic. In the next video, we're going to move on to black, and if you guys missed white or the introduction video, make sure you guys go check them out. They're already up. Yanks, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be there. Sad we're done with blue, though.
And thank you for the story times. I'm enjoying them, honestly.
Anytime. This story is great.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.